Welcome to the Choose on Purpose podcast, where leaders will live with intention. I'm your host, Becky Ploutz, and today is strategy hour on the show, which means that this is a community conversation inside of our Level Up on Purpose community space. You're going to hear multiple women, multiple perspectives, multiple stories, and moments where you find yourself thinking, yep, that's me. Yep, I can relate to that. Because August is the month that we're in currently. So wherever you're listening to this, however you're listening to this in the future, our theme in the community that we're discussing is action. So inside the community, every month there is a theme that we focus on really to get present in our lives, our businesses, whatever our focus is, and just how are we living it, working on it, on purpose and with intention. And I choose a word very intentionally because, we think about change. We can talk about change. We can even plan for change. We can journal on it, right? And we even become really good at wanting change or saying we want change. And eventually something has to happen, right? We have to move. And action doesn't always look like a giant leap. This is what we've been discussing in the community. Sometimes action, it looks like sending an email that we've been avoiding, or making a specific appointment, or having a conversation, setting a boundary, right? Like taking a step in the direction of change in our life. So doing the thing you've been telling yourself you'll do someday, so today we're talking and we're moving through and we're going to use the acronym of ACTION. Okay, so if you're taking notes, which I highly encourage to help anchor in what this is for your personal perspective as you're hearing ours on the show, use the word action as your framework. That's what we're going to discuss through. And I want you to listen and notice where you feel challenged, encouraged, maybe even a little uncomfortable, right? And that's something to pay attention to as we go through the conversation around action, because this is less about information and more about how are you going to move from here, building some awareness, which is our first letter, A, is all around awareness. So if you're writing out the acronym, awareness is your A for today's conversation. So before we change and we do something, right, we got to get honest about what we're actually doing. So the question for everyone that I want to open up is, what have you become aware of in your life that you no longer can pretend that you don't see it, right? You're becoming more aware of it. Maybe it's something that you've been tolerating. Maybe it's a habit or a relationship dynamic in your life. Maybe it's something you say you want, but your calendar doesn't reflect it, right? You haven't committed to it yet. Maybe you realize you've been waiting for some kind of permission. So the question is, what have you become aware of in your life that you no longer want to pretend that you don't see it? And whoever wants to jump in, be sure to introduce yourself on the show so they can hear your voice, and go ahead and share. I'm going to open it up. Who wants to start?
Happy to start because something's really showing up for me. So this is Nancy Kelso, the real expert, and I get to help ignite confidence and courage in leaders who want to really unleash their full potential. And I use the real framework in that. And so part of the real framework is a big part of the real framework is ours for reflection. So, and I'm a natural instinctive reflector. So I do a lot of reflection. And when you say awareness, I think, oh, that's so much. My awareness often comes from taking that pause and reflecting. And it's one of the things I love about this community is because when we are here, we do these this deep work and ask these questions. And so I get a lot of reflection time and very intentional around certain words. But what was really showing up for me when you talked about, being honest and what's been showing up recently is that I have noticed this cycle, and it's not the first time I've noticed, but I have this cycle of go, 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 do, crash, feel like I'm lazy, get
Mm,
down on myself, refresh, rejuvenate, go, 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 do. Right? Like it's like this. Um, so anyhow, I've been really paying attention to that. And um, when I think of having that awareness now, and some of you know that like one of the things I'm really trying to be intentional with is coming into more peace and presence. And so I'm really trying to change that cycle from having to be like, oh, now I'm going, now I'm doing, and it often shows up as this excitement, this energy. So I want to keep the momentum going.
mm,
But what I forget is that momentum, then what I've done is take it to an extreme where then I crash. And so just being like, I just want to increase my awareness of, and and maybe I'm challenging myself to shift that hard cycle and be a little bit more fluid in
mm,
when I rest versus, the extremes. So that's what was showing up for me.
mm. That's so good. I love that because awareness isn't necessarily comfortable, right? It's I love that you use the word challenge. You're challenging that idea and that thought and that pattern is what I hear. Um, and I love that. Sorry, I got something on my tongue. Um, because sometimes that awareness in the moment, it's really just realizing oh, I'm not stuck in this or I am. It's the awareness so that you can participate moving forward in a meaningful way with what you're becoming more aware of.
Hmm.
Thing
Yeah.
that I think was really key for me, and hearing you ask this question is, what am I becoming aware of that I can no longer pretend I don't see?
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And that is so true because I've known this for years.
Mm-hmm.
And I pretended not to see it. I mean, it happened in the corporate world. It would, and then it's like, whew, like now I'm having a hard time even showing up for work because I just stayed in it for so long and stressed myself out and got burnt out. And then I'd have to go through this. Oh, now I just feel so lazy. Oh, I'm so lazy. And I beat myself up over that, right? I've seen it for years.
Yeah.
And um, and so to pretend, I can no longer pretend that I can't see it. Like now I'm finally like, well, what am I going to do about this? Like owning it to change it because
Mm-hmm.
it's getting in my way. And I think that's the key is, I thought it was serving me for a lot of years, but it really, really wasn't. So,
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure it did for, a reason, right? These things, and I'm someone that personally believes in, the timing, like, okay, it served a purpose during that time for a reason for you to be ready or more, aware of what you want to do about it. And it can sting, right? Like when we're like, oh, I've let this go on for so long in our lives. And it can also be really empowering, right? It's how we choose to look at it once we see it. And I believe feedback is a gift, whether it's, uh, you know, whatever kind of feedback it is, it's a gift as long as we look at how we're going to grow and evolve from the things that we are now more aware of. So I love that. Bree, did you want to share something?
Yes, I did. My name is Brianna Moravik Miller, and I'm a practicing marriage and family therapist. My specialization is couples therapy. I joined this community because I'm really excited to move into the coaching aspect of things eventually. But right now, I'm just really excited about just being a marriage and family therapist and joining this very awesome, very incredibly mind-blowing, energetic group. But I wanted to share. So I do think, Nancy, I love that you shared that about the that it was really effective for a long time. Because I think it's like the reason in the season, right? There's a reason for it and there's a season for it. And mine kind of resonated a little bit with that too, in my energy, what I'm putting energy into, and how I want to spend my time in, am I getting positive energy or not from my experiences and my interactions. I actually wrote down the awareness that my energy is valuable and not everyone deserves access to it. And I think that that is really a challenge when we're talking about challenge. I think that's really a challenge because we think about all of the time and effort, whether it's careers or being a parent, which is something that we've talked about often, right? Friendships or community connections. What are the things that I intentionally want to say yes to? What are the things I intentionally want to say no to because they aren't giving me energy? And because the energy maybe isn't as positive. And so that was something I wrote down about just being more aware of the yes and no's and what like fuels me, what gives me energy and what doesn't give me energy.
Mm. Yeah, that's huge. Exactly. And I'm going to point this out even deeper to say this is exactly what I want everyone listening to think about, right? Because yeah, it's uncomfortable to have that awareness like, oh, everyone doesn't get my energy. Like I want to help everyone. We want to save everyone sometimes, right? And when we're willing to admit like, oh, we have a certain threshold and there does need to be boundaries around my energy and my space, like where I am right now in my life, whatever roles and things I have going in my life, whether that is parenthood or building a new business, going through school, like all of these things take energy, and not shaming ourselves for protecting ourselves or beating ourselves up, but really telling ourselves the truth, like, okay, I only have 24 hours just like everybody else. There's people in the world doing more things than I am. How do they manage it? They decide what's important to them, and they become more aware of the things that they need to say no to very intentionally. So I love that, Bree. Okay, I'm going to move to the C of our acronym of action, which is choice. Y'all know I love talking about the power of choice here, right? Choose on purpose. So the awareness, right, is saying, I see it. Right now, we're talking about not walking away and unseeing the things, right? Choice says, now what am I going to do about it? Like Nancy was saying, I don't want to not pay attention to it. I now want to make a powerful choice. What am I going to do about what I see, what I hear, what's in my awareness right now? And this is where things get interesting, we'll say, right? Because sometimes we think we're waiting for circumstances to change in our life, but underneath that waiting pattern is often a decision that we are avoiding. So the question here is, what choice have you been postponing, right? Who wants to take this one? Is there a choice that you have been postponing that you would love to tie into this conversation around action?
I can talk. Jumping in late. Sorry about that.
Hi,
Something, my speaker wasn't working, so I couldn't hear you guys, so I had to go troubleshoot it. Um, so just jumping in, not
Mhm.
knowing what has been going on previously, but something I've been postponing is sending out a contract to my clients that I had before I created a contract.
Mm.
So, not really sure why I'm hesitating. I know there's fear involved because I say it, like there's fear that maybe I'll lose some clients because, they won't want to sign a contract, or they don't like the fact that in the contract I'm saying I'm going to raise my fees. Um, you know, um, or anything else that's in the contract that, possibly is different than what they thought they were getting, or whatever. Um, and so I've been hesitating on taking action with doing that. And for one, I'm not getting the pay raise because I'm telling them I'm giving them like 2 months notice, and that 2 months is getting farther and farther away. Um, and and then also I'm not acting like a business,
Mm.
right? Because businesses have contracts. Um, and um, and so why am I hesitating in operating more like a business?
Mhm.
And I'm aware of what some of those thoughts are. Mm. Um, because I usually am pretty aware, which I think you were saying was the A in action. Um,
Yeah.
and a lot of what I've heard, even just in the small time that I've been in here, really aligns with the 12 steps to freedom that we teach. Because the first step is awareness, and the second step is willingness, which is kind of what I'm hearing you talk about now. Like, are you willing to do something about what you're aware of? Um, so,
Mhm.
um, anyways, that's what came to mind.
Yeah, exactly. Because sometimes, right, our most powerful action is saying, I can no longer do this specifically or in this way, no more overcommitting to something or over explaining ourselves as business people. Businesses have operations and standard procedures, and contracts are one of those, right? And policies and price raising, those things happen because guess what? The world continues to do that as well. And no more abandoning ourselves to keep everyone else comfortable, because that's something that we as business owners need to practice more of. It can be uncomfortable, and we do need to make those choices that keep us growing as well, and not pretending that something is working when it isn't, because that doesn't serve you, and that therefore it won't serve your clients further, right? So that's a great example of making a choice to move forward and thinking about the empowering piece of that and what it will really do for you as a business, for them as clients, um, by making the choice to send the contract, right? And trusting that, hey, the people that it's meant for will stay, or things will shift and it'll be what it is. But that's a choice that you get to make as a business owner. So thanks for
Yeah.
sharing.
And what I wrote in the chat is, um, you are making a choice to act, or you are making a choice not to act.
Yeah.
There's no in between. You're either, you may not be conscious that you're making a choice not to act, or you may not be owning, right? You might be blaming situation or someone else that's like enabling you not be able to take action, but you're either doing one or the other. Mm.
Right. And you don't get to opt out of choosing, because the inaction is the choice. So exactly what you're saying, not choosing is a choice to stand still. And we only get to choose whether we're doing it intentionally, purposefully, right? And there's a meaningful reason that why we're making that change in our life or our business, or, our own scenario. So,
Yeah. And I don't believe we really can stand still. Um, I feel like we're moving some direction. We're going
mhm,
forward, we're going backwards, we're going to the side, we're going diagonal. We're not really ever standing still because life is not standing still. So we're, time does not stop. So we are always moving, and maybe we're going in circles, but we're always moving. There is no standing still. There is no, you can hold your breath for only so long, right?
Right.
Like there is no standing still. And so becoming more intentional at first is going to be exhausting. But every time you do it is more than you were doing it before.
Yeah, and the empowering question that I would send to everyone right now, which I'm going to put in the chat right now for you, is if I keep making the same choices I'm making today, where will they take me 6 months from now? So if you already know this change needs to happen in your life or your business and you're avoiding it, what is it going to look like in 6 months from now? Resentment, guilt, beating yourself up for the next 6 months. What is that for your own scenarios? Think about that and then make an empowering choice from there to understand the importance of taking action, right? That's what we're talking about here today. So I'm going to move to the T so that we can keep hearing more of the scenarios happening for everyone in here as well. So the T in action is trust, right? And this one matters because most of us want certainty before we act. Like, we want to know it's going to work. We want to know we're making the right, quote, right choices in the decisions in our lives, right? We want to know the outcome is going to be there. But life doesn't work that way. Sometimes you have to move before you have proof, right? That's how we find it, is by taking action and learning from what does happen, what does occur, what kind of questions come. So my question to you is, where do you need to trust yourself enough to take the next step? Not know how it's all going to happen, but to take the next step without knowing exactly the way that it's going to turn out. So that's my question. Leah.
Hi, this is Leah, and I am a relationship marketing strategist. And what that means is I teach and help people network and build relationships that make money. And trust is super important. And actually, all three of these are coming together at once. So today I've had a kind of a rough day, and I came to the realization, the awareness that I move at a different speed than my husband. And I love my husband. He's incredible, but he processes much longer than I do. I'm a much quicker processor. My son and I were talking about it. And so I realized that because I tend to just keep moving and I can make decisions very quickly. He wants to do all the research and the consumer reports and all that goes into making a decision. And I'm like, I've already bought whatever it is that I'm looking for, I realized that I have actually disempowered my husband in some places when I have done that, because I move ahead of him. And that awareness today has been kind of painful and sad, because that's not my intention, right? So I realized that tonight I feel the need to have an honest conversation and even apologize because of that awareness, that I never meant to overstep and move ahead of what. Because from a belief standpoint, I believe that we're a team, and I believe that he's the head of our household. And yet I was raised by a very strong New York woman, and I was raised to not need anyone but me. And so I've had to learn, and I still obviously am not learning it all the time. So I have to learn to be more aware of how my choices might be affecting my husband, for example. I'll use that as an example, and trust that when we have this conversation tonight, not only will it be safe, but it will be an opportunity for us to forge new paths and find ways to work together so that both of us feel seen and heard. So that was the awareness, the choice, and the trust coming together.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I think, well, I know I can relate to that, and the courage, right, behind the action that you're saying you're going to take already from this thought process, right, is it's going to be very intentional. It's going to be heartfelt. It's going to be, from a place of, oh, I realize this happened. And your husband's probably gonna be like, oh, okay. I didn't even know that was happening, but thank you, kind of thing, right? Yeah, that's
I think
great.
the growth in that too. I love that. Right from my perspective of like relationships, Leah, people pay me a lot of money to figure that out, and you did it yourself. So I'm like,
Yay!
yeah. It's so funny because I just had a very similar conversation about like relationship trust and relationship trust in like your core, like whoever your human being is, right? And so mine is my husband also. And this ability that, yes, I also go 110 miles an hour, and he is like Mr. Fix It. And I am like, okay, there's this, and this, right? And I have all the ideas, and he's very the like, what's the logic, right? And I think trusting that ability to have those hard conversations, trusting the like, it's really interesting because I find that trusting myself is actually hard, because sometimes I make choices, sometimes I make decisions, and then I have this self-doubt of, oh, was that the right choice? Was that the right decision? Was that the right action that I have made? Was that the right going in the right direction? And so when we were talking about relationships, like to trust also the support that I have, right? That my partner, my husband is going to support me, even if it's a wild and crazy idea, even if I'm like, oh my gosh, except for if I ever said I was going back to school, I think he would be like, no, Bree, you have so many degrees. You don't need to go. No, he'd be like, let's sign up. That's not even true. But trusting the fact that we can have these conversations, trusting the fact that he as my person will continue to support me, but also trusting myself. I wrote down, which we've said a couple of times in our community, is you don't need to know the how, you just need to know the why. And trusting that is something like that came up 3 different times as I was writing this down, is we can make all of this movement in our life, but we don't necessarily need to know the outcome. And I am very much I need to know the outcome, but tell me why. I want to trust the decisions I make no matter what. And so that's something, my awareness, I wrote that down. I wrote it under my aware part too, because I was like, Bree, you can make really good decisions. You have made really good decisions. You know your partner will support you. You have to trust that. And so just being really considerate and cautious of that too, as that's impacting my life, I think is huge.
Yeah. I like that too, because right, action creates the evidence. And so when we say we're going to do it and we do it, or we tell ourselves that we're going to, honor a boundary about, what the next step could be, we honor that, but like we still need to move on it somehow to know, to start understanding that we're building the evidence through trusting. And I think that's super important to make sure that we keep in mind, like the trust. Okay, the I in our acronym is intention, which we talk about all the time as well, but like putting this through the lens of action, right? And this is one that's obviously important because being busy is not the same thing as moving forward. And we could be on a treadmill, stay in the same place because we're just taking any old action. And you can take a lot of action that way and still end up somewhere you never even wanted. You didn't want to go there and you're still there. So that question, what I want to ask is, what are you actually trying to create? What are you practicing creating in your life right now? Not what are you supposed to want, right? Not what looks impressive and what everyone else is doing or saying that they want, but what do you want? And putting it through this lens that we're discussing here. Does anyone have anything else they want to share on this?
Well, Carrie here, trauma-informed yoga instructor for balancing the nervous system. I will say that intention came up for me the second that we were talking about awareness, because I think that's the number one thing we have to do with all of these examples that we're all saying, is to dig deep within our set and within inside of ourselves and decide what is our intention behind, Kelly, the price increase, or, Nancy with rest. Like, what is the intention? Well, the intention is to not burn out. Or Kelly, your intention is, maybe you feel like you're putting energy into something that may deserve a little bit more back, right? Or, anything that we do takes energy. So I'm saying that I think that it goes into intention. And in order to be intentional, we have to create the time. And it's not on the hamster wheel. It's not doing. So I like that when we came to action or the choice, it doesn't have to be a big, huge choice. Like, I think sometimes when we think of choices, we think we're all in or we're all out. But really, it's getting intentional of what's the choice in that space in between. So I'm love that you chose intention for this next one.
Yeah. And I think of, especially because you're speaking, Carrie, and I know the background, like thinking about the head and the heart. And, because the brain needs the heart. And this is where I think intention really is. It's in our heart space. Otherwise we become incredibly capable doers of meaningless things. We need meaning. As humans, we look for meaning. We do. But because we might allow a lot of distraction and things to come into our daily life, we got to go back to the meaning, right? And having intention in the actions that we're making so that we stay away from burnout. We stay filled up in a way that we can continue to serve. And the little check-in, that you can do with yourself is the action you're taking connected to the life you're actually practicing to create? Because if the answer is no, then guess what? You don't necessarily need more discipline in your life to do the things and take that physical action. You may need a different direction. So do that check-in, as you're taking action, to know if it's a yes or a no, and see if it's connected to the life that you actually want to be creating for yourself. Because intention gives action somewhere to go in a direction. Okay. Our O is ownership. We got to own it, right? This might be the one that makes us squirm a little bit extra. Because ownership asks, like, what part of this belongs to me? I've already said this morning a couple of times in a conversation with a connection, that I was like, it's me, I'm the problem. And I pointed out, I know that I'm taking ownership, and it's kind of a funny joke, but I hear myself say that, and I do call myself out intentionally about it like that, so that it's not only in my head, but now I'm verbalizing it. Taking ownership of it is what I believe, like, what we do in this space. We're speaking life to the things, even the things that make us squirm or feel really uncomfortable, in the fact that it's now in our awareness. We do see it. So it's not who's to blame for something, right? If we're asking the question, what part belongs to me? We want to stay away from who's to blame, why did this happen, but more of, what is mine to do now that I'm taking that ownership? So let's talk about that. What does ownership look like in real life for you?
I think there's also an aspect of control and not control. I think there's a difference between being controlling and, ownership or accountability. Um, there are so many things that we can't control, right? And instead of trying to um, own those things, you know, we can let go of those things and we can start taking action on the things that we can change, what we can control, and that's ourselves, right? Like we can't, like Leah, I can't control that my husband takes forever to do something, right? So what can I do? I can do research for him. I can bring him less options. Mm, You know, I can, like, with buying a car. Okay, so like this is something we've done multiple times, right? Over our years. So I do all the research. I set up the appointment to go talk to the car dealership and take a test drive. I take it down to like two options. Or one option even. And and so it's it's something that I can do. I can control in how long the process takes, right? Making it easier for him to make the decision. And so, with my kids, like there's so much I can't control, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so my desire of what their life is not necessarily their desire of what their life is. So what can I do as mom to support them and to still show up as the mom that I want to be, So that's kind of how I've tried to approach, like, what's my ownership? Like, my daughter was giving me a hard time about my little boys not knowing how to brush their teeth or right. And I'm like, I taught them how to brush their teeth. Just like I taught you. Right? I tell them to brush their teeth. I can't own if they do it right or if they do it when I ask. All I can do is teach them how and remind them, you know? So I can't own everything, right? Like everything can't come down to me, even though I'm mom.
Yeah, and ownership isn't self-blame, right? I think that's important to put in here. There are things that happen to us also that we didn't choose, but we can still ask, what do I choose from here? So, like, there's still an action step that you can take ownership of from what you hear from other people. That's where our own power lies. Maybe you can't change where it's at today, but you can change an idea of where you want it to go starting tomorrow. You could retrain someone, reminding them, but training them again. We can choose the boundaries around what that is. We can choose the conversations or how we ask for help, right? Or choosing to leave a situation. That's something that I chose with motherhood for my kids when they are like inconsolably not paying attention to anything that I'm saying. I'm like, okay. And I just stop talking and I walk away, and they realize I'm not going to sit here and let them not listen to me. That's my choice, to stay there and feel like I am not being heard. And then I show them that they can also do the same thing, right? I'm exampling that by taking ownership of my part. They're like, I'm not going to try and talk over them. I'm going to choose to leave right now for them to understand, like, I tried to do this, and this is my choice now, is to walk away, so that we can figure it out from there. So ownership is really, it puts the steering wheel back in our own hands.
Yeah, I think it allows us to realize that we have control over how we respond to all of these things. And that's part of our ownership, is how are we owning that? And then maybe even asking ourselves, well, what is our role within all of this? Because, we all have these situations we're in, and we have a role within it. And to me, that's really, truly taking ownership. is that self-reflection on what I could have done differently. How am I responding? What did I do? Like Kelly said, with teaching kids how to brush their teeth, she gave them the tools. Now it's like, okay, now how am I gonna handle it when they're not using the tools I gave them? So then it's our ownership, right? On how we're responding to that. It's big.
Yeah.
I also, with ownership, Carrie, I'm glad you said that. I wrote down immediately my responding versus reacting. And mine also did go to my kids right away. But also just in life in general, like whether that's professionally or in my relationship, whatever that looks like. The ownership of my own emotions, I think, is so important in having the ability to say, like, am I responding to this or am I reacting to this? And sometimes, don't get me wrong, which we've talked about, I'm very open about. I've been overstimulated. I've been overwhelmed. I yell, right? And or say something like maybe with a tone or something. But I'm also, which I think, Becky, you and I were talking about this in one of our calls recently, I'm also the very first one to go back and apologize and take accountability and take ownership of how I reacted in saying, like, hey, I'm really sorry, like that wasn't appropriate. Because I feel that that's role modeling to my kids. Hey, we can make mistakes, but also what's the accountability piece of that? What's the ownership piece of that? In my intention is never to hurt your feelings. But sometimes I get overwhelmed. Like, I'm a mom, like I'm a human being. And so I think the piece to that too is, am I responding or am I reacting? And that's ownership of my own emotions. And I think that is so huge, especially in parenting, because it's always teaching and growing and learning, and they don't come with instruction manuals.
Totally.
So I think that's a really big piece of it.
Yeah, ownership of that communication, because we all do. I mean, we're human beings. If anybody said that they weren't upset or reactive, I'd question that at some time or another, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so you might be able to guess what our N is. Now. The N is now. So what can you do now in the next 24 hours? You're listening to this, you have pinpointed, right, an awareness that you have. You are recognizing a choice that you have been waiting on, postponing, right? And like stepping into trusting that you're ready to, move forward with what you see here. You're going to be intentional about it, right? You're going to take ownership of your part of the thing. But then what are you actually going to do in the next 24 hours? Not next month, not next January when the calendar turns, for the new year, not when we feel less busy, or when we feel, when we're more confident. That's what I always hear too. But within the next 24 hours of hearing this conversation, what are you going to take action on? So I would love to do a round robin, and Leah is ready to go to share with us about her action. So Leah, kick us off, please.
Thank you. Well, this is actually so timely for me because I'm going to be having this conversation this evening with my husband. And I don't want to be self-deprecating to the point that I'm self-condemning myself, but I do want to own the role I played in how this is playing out. And, I often share that I have 32 years of recovery from alcohol and drug addiction. And in the beginning, it was 1 minute at a time, and never mind 1 day at a time. And I learned to do the next right thing, because sometimes that's all I could think about is what is the next right thing. And that's what I think about when I see now is what is my next right thing that will get me closer to where I want to be without either taking somebody else out or taking me out. So now I'm very focused intentionally. I've gotten to the place where I can be very present. In the book, Time is a Tool, he talks about that when we live in the past, but we're trying to move forward, it's like driving with your foot on the gas pedal, but looking in the rearview mirror. And that was such a huge visualization for me, because, you know, when you're stuck in the past, you're stuck in that old place and you beat yourself up. And so all your conversations, all your interactions are from that person. You know, for me, it was the child or somebody who was wounded. But when I can be present, have the future, I know what my past is. That's just a lesson. It's a piece of information that I can use, but I'm looking to the future and being present. Then I am being the best me that I can be. And that's my now. So that is what came to me.
Love that. Thank you, Leah.
I'll just go right behind Leah and second that. I think that the present moment is the only moment really we have, and we do learn so much from our past, and we just keep going. And I would say that from this call, I am gonna probably in the next 24 hours. Was that the question? What we're gonna do in the next 24 hours? Okay.
Yep.
I'm gonna figure out. I've been looking at I'm going through a yoga therapy program. I have not have gone into a cohort yet. And so I'm going to go and research that a little bit and see if the timing's right for me or not. And so I'm going to take my small baby steps and just go through how much training I already have and then what that might look like time wise to jump into something like that. Because, yeah, and I have to figure out my intention behind that. So it was helpful for me to kind of reflect a little bit on where that's at and where I'm going to go forward. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Carrie. Kelly.
The first thing that came to mind was I can take a moment and reteach my boys how to brush their teeth right. Because when I thought about I could start individual emails to each of my clients to include this contract, that just is not my next step right now. I have literally like 6 clients waiting on work for me to do, and trying to do both of these classes for my marketing program.
Yeah.
And my heart is just constantly racing, and I'm still not even 2 weeks out from my surgery. And so it's like I'm putting so much on myself right now, and my anxiety is like through the roof. And so it's like, okay, Kelly, calm down. You don't have to start this email process in the next 24 hours for Becky to like be, okay, Kelly, that's a good goal. Like, it could be just simple as taking Liam and Griffin in the bathroom and saying, okay, let's have a refresher course because school starts Monday, and, you know, it's more, you know, they're going to be going out and hanging around people and making new friends. And it probably would be good for them to properly, you know, brush their teeth. So
I love that.
That's what came to mind.
I love that. You know, those are the small things that they probably weigh on us more, right? As moms, as, you know, as people that are also leading other people, our humans specifically, that might relieve some extra stress off you. So I love that. Simple. It doesn't have to be a big business decision from here, right? That's not what we're looking for. So I love that you're like, yeah, Becky I do not need you to do that, Kelly. I need you to take a step that's going to support you. That's what I hold for. So yeah, awesome. Nancy.
Well, what I'm going to do in the next 24 hours is not do anything more than I've already committed to. So my action is to not take action. I mean, like, I feel like that's what I'm practicing, right? And so why do I need another thing to have to do? I already know what I've got planned and what is most important to me in my next 24 hours because, hey, I'm using the On Purpose with Purpose Level Up Journal. So there you go. So that's my next step. Follow what's in my journal.
Yeah. You're following the plan instead of feeling like there's something else that you need to get in your schedule for the next 24 hours. You have the plan, you're following the plan. That is action. You're putting I just picture you putting your blinders on, Nancy, and you're staying the course. You're keeping your eyes on what you've already decided.
And a huge thanks to Leah for reminding me in the chat that is not lazy, right? Like I go to, if I'm not doing something, I'm being lazy. Well, I already have the things to do. And what's wrong with stepping outside and taking a breath of fresh air in between, which is one of the things I've already got built into my day, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
I love that. There you go. All right, Bree.
I'm going to follow Nancy in that a little bit as well. I am just going to be really present. I was thinking, because I do have all these very goal orientated, like what does this look like? And the next 2 weeks, I'm just going to be with my family and be really present. And so I went back to my core desires, which you guys know is something I'm really been trying to incorporate. And so finding joy and just being very grateful for the experiences that we're going to have, and then look for abundance throughout our trip. And just be with my kids. I'm really excited just to be with my kids and be with my husband. And I want to be in Montana, sitting, looking at the mountains, having a cup of coffee, using my On Purpose journal. I'm taking my planner with me. So I really just want to be intentional about my time to disconnect and just be present with my family. I think that is going to reset and recharge me. And then when I come back, I can really dive into what are the rest of my big goals look like.
I love that. So bringing this together for our listeners, awareness, A, see what's true. C, choice. Decide what you're willing to do about it. T is trust. Move before you have complete certainty. Intention is our I. Make sure your actions are connected to what you actually want. Ownership is our O. Take responsibility for what is yours to choose. And now is our N. Do something today, because here is what I want you to remember. You don't think your way into a new life or a new scenario or change. At some point, you have to live your own way into it. And that's why we practice this together inside of the On Purpose community, because sometimes you don't need another person telling you what to do. You need space. You need space where you can hear yourself, what you're thinking, tell yourself the truth about it, get some perspective, be encouraged that you can slow down or you can speed up and that your pace is just right for you. And then actually go and do the thing that you set out to do. That's what community is for. So your invitation today is to simply ask yourself, what is your action? We'll bold that, right? Think about the acronym here and move forward with this framework. Don't just think about it. Don't just comment about it. Write it down. Put it on your calendar. Tell someone for some extra accountability, and then, go make it real. So love yourself, live fearlessly, do all things with purpose, empower your journey, and choose on purpose.